Well-known governor of California, Gavin Newsom, is very good at being famous, but maybe not always so good at being popular. He has been making a lot of bold moves lately, and not everyone is a big fan. You might even say everyone
hates Gavin Newsom.
I am Neo-Barbarian. Welcome to the channel. We're going to be going over a video from CNN that is criticizing some of Gavin Newsom's current strategies. Scroll!
California Governor Gavin Newsom is splitting from his own party tonight on the issue of transgender athletes in women's sports. On the first episode of his new podcast, Governor Newsom, who is potentially considering a run for the White House in 2028, judge for yourself when you hear this, spoke about this issue with the conservative activist Charlie Kirk. And Governor Newsom said Republicans were able to effectively weaponize this issue against his party.
So Charlie Kirk, very famous guy on YouTube. You'll see him all over the internet arguing with different people and explaining different conservative points of views on things. And he's very good at what he does. Surprisingly, Gavin Newsom has him on the podcast, on his new podcast. You can see already the contempt on CNN's face here. They're not really happy that he was in the same room as Charlie Kirk. You know how they are about these sort of things.
Would you say no men in female sports?
Well, I think it's an issue of fairness. I completely agree with you on that. It is an issue of fairness.
So,
what?
I revere sports, and so the issue of fairness is completely legit. And I saw that the last couple of years. Boy, did I saw how you guys were able to weaponize that issue at another level.
Hold on.
My Democratic sources are David Axelrod and Karen Finney.
So Gavin Newsom has stuck his finger up in the air. He's an astute politician. He knows how this game goes. He's made his name off of these social issues, right? He's not really made his name off of actually accomplishing anything to better the lives of Californians. If anything, situations in California have been getting worse since he's been governor, hence the moniker #1 U-Haul salesman of all time.
Here's my advice. If I were giving the governor advice, I'd say, don't be so overt that people can see the wheels turning. The obvious question would be, well, you've been governor of a...
Actually, what we'd prefer is if he would just come out and say, actually, all I want to do is become president because I'm bored of this governor thing, and I haven't, now that I'm termed out as governor, what else am I going to do? Of course I'm going to try to be president, right?
Of California for 6 years. You were lieutenant governor for many years before that. When did you have this epiphany? And
this lady is hilarious.
And the answer is when he found that the Republicans could weaponize the issue.
The thing that bothered me about the whole incident was...
So they're mad at him for doing what a politician is supposed to do. Now, they shouldn't be, because Democrats, all they have to do to win elections is just have a decent candidate. They're superior at propaganda. They're superior at messaging. They're superior at creating arguments that have an emotional salience. But they've been losing because they pick people to run that no one can stand. So all they have to do is put someone with a nice plastic face with a D next to it, a blue D that signifies we will give you all the free money you want, right? We will make you feel good about all the bad things that we do, right? And they win. They will win.
It was such an obvious gimmick, right? He needed some headlines to say, Newsom breaks with the left, right? And what does he do? He picks of all the people that you could pick to try to say, hey, I want to talk to somebody who's coming.
Of all the people, if you want to have a right-wing person on your podcast, why would you pick the most popular person who can actually back up his ideas and back up his arguments? Why would you pick that person?
From a different perspective than me. It was such a gimmick. And to David's point, it's like the thirstiness is dripping off of him. And it's like, just stop it. It's gross. And, he's using the left,
it is
basically.
Gross,
and these are the people who have had his back for a very long time. When they tried to recall him, actually. And I just don't think people are not going to take too kindly to it. On the issue, what bothers me about it, I did college sports. I don't think I would have felt it was fair if a trans person I rode crew. I'm clear about that, but I would never. I think the conversation that he could have been having is, you don't have to demonize people. You don't have to demonize children.
Well, hold on a second. All right. The issue that they're criticizing Gavin Newsom for is pointing out that Democrats are losing on the transgender in sports question. Okay? People are not really thrilled on it. And the funny thing is what's coming out here. What's coming out here is these people agreed with that all along. All right? She just said she agrees with Gavin Newsom. She agrees exactly with what he said. But she's just mad that he said it. She's mad that he said it with Charlie Kirk in the room, as if that somehow gives him ammunition.
Who are trans and who are vulnerable and have high suicide.
Now she's saying, oh, you should have spent the whole podcast just talking about how you shouldn't demonize trans children. All right? That's what? So he's not allowed to talk? This is why Democrats are bad at podcasts. Okay? This is why. It's not because there's some sort of conspiracy against Democrats and media. It's just that media can't have Democrats can't have a conversation without people jumping down the throat and saying, you're not with the program. She's admitting she doesn't actually disagree with what he says. Yet, she's mad that he had to say it.
Rates, right? Instead of, sort of gushing at Charlie Kirk about, oh, you weaponize it. Gushing. Why not take a stand?
So you're bothered by how he did it, not necessarily his argument.
Sure. I mean, I also just think it was so obvious.
Sure.
It was just disgusting.
That's actually
the whole thing, honestly.
Well, what he said was that he believed the most
gross.
devastating ad against Vice President Harris during the 2024 race was an ad that the Trump campaign ran about. It was her from the 2020 primary, where she was essentially saying.
I'm not even sure it was a 2020 primary. I think it may have been her from a race for state office.
Okay, so it was maybe even earlier than that, but it was her on camera in an interview saying that she did believe that gender-affirming surgeries should be able to happen to illegal immigrants.
Right, now we're
people who are in prison.
Now we're talking about Kamala Harris and her campaign.
It's her saying that she fought hard to allow prisoners
in prison.
to stay in prison to get this surgery, and that was one of the angles. There was a taxpayer surgery.
And he said the fact.
This is Gavin Newsom's point. People are not thrilled with this angle anymore. Okay? And he's a politician, all right? And politicians have a job to do. The job to do is connect with your emotions to get your vote and connect to financial institutions and financial interest by enticing them with money's support for their agendas, right? So you can get your donor money and you can get your votes. You need to have both, all right? Gavin Newsom's very good at this, right? He's very good at appealing to people's emotions. He's very good at appealing to issues that have emotional salience, right? And then what does he do for his state? Who gets the money in the state of California? Corporations, NGOs who don't do their jobs. These are called handouts for corporations, right?
That she didn't respond to that ad, he believed was, quote, devastating.
Yeah, well, I think that ad was devastating. That ad, she worked very hard to build her story of middle-class roots and middle-class upbringing, sort of mainstream kind of thinking. And
she worked very hard to convince people that she worked at McDonald's, and so hard that a staffer put a fake picture of her wearing a McDonald's outfit that was clearly photoshopped. You can find it online. They just took a picture of some random girl and put Kamala Harris's face on it.
That ad it separated her from some of the people that she was trying to reach. But listen, for Democrats, those kind of debates are not useful. When Democrats are arguing about economic issues and things that affect the broadest number of people, they do better than on these cultural issues. And that's been true for a very long time.
Ooh, look at her face there. She was very concerned with this line of conversation.
with that, but David, I think one of the mistakes our party makes, and part of the reason that ad was so effective, $60 million from Elon Musk spent in Pennsylvania doesn't hurt.
All right, so $60 million from Elon Musk. That's why Kamala lost the election? It's not the $1 billion that Kamala flushed down the toilet? All right, I don't know. Maybe.
But they didn't have an answer for it. And I think
No, they're not responding. He was right about that.
Yeah.
Look, as a political analyst, he was right about everything that he said. As a political analyst,
Should that not be said for someone as prominent as him, given this issue, obviously, he believed was formidable?
But I think there's a different issue, for Democrats, which is
the issue formidable.
Too often we're told, just don't respond. And neuroscience, actually, if you don't respond, then people are left to fill in the gaps on their own. And so he wasn't wrong on that point.
Ooh, okay, so she's saying neuroscience, if you don't respond with nonsense, then people will start to think for themselves and come to some conclusions that contradict yours. Okay.
But again, why are you sitting with Charlie Kirk taking pot shots at the VP? Again, you've been the governor of the state, the lieutenant governor, the mayor. Why don't you talk about yourself? Talk about your own accomplishments rather than sitting.
So she doesn't know how podcast works, I guess. On a podcast, you don't invite a guest over, especially not somebody who's got more pull than you. By the way, the video of Charlie Kirk's interview has more views on Charlie Kirk's YouTube page than it does on Gavin Newsom, the governor of California's YouTube page. Okay? You don't invite somebody on your show and then talk about yourself for 2 hours. That's just bad business.
It's clear what he was doing. He just didn't do it very artfully. But yes, Caitlin, the issue, I agree with both of you. It was an issue that took on outsized importance, and I agree with you that she never responded to it. And they spent the Trump campaign spent about a quarter of its resources on a series of ads on that one issue, using her in her own words, and it was very, very damning.
Well, and
so they think the issue is that she didn't respond, not that the issue itself was just unacceptable to the public.
Just ask because he may have 2028 ambitions. Obviously, that's part of why he's doing the podcast, to sit down with these more MAGA-aligned voices about this. But Seth Moulton of Massachusetts made similar comments and was ripped by a lot of Democrats for what he said and his view on this, even though he thought it was just, he said, as a Democrat, I'm, quote, supposed to be afraid to say that.
Well, look, I think what I didn't like about what Seth Moulton said was, I think one of the things that Democrats don't always learn is stand up for your values. I mean, I will
stand up. The problem we had with you saying the thing that I already agree with, but I'm not allowed to say, is that you need to stand up for your values, which means pretend that you have values.
Stand up for the value of people's right. If you are trans, if you are LGBTQ, and not demonizing people, even if I disagree with you, as we were talking about, on the issue of should you be able to play sports. And I think people will respect. I think too often what Democrats do is say, we're just not going to talk about it.
But didn't Seth Moulton say exactly what you said, which is that it's not fair to women if there are trans athletes?
Didn't he just say exactly what you said, and you're criticizing him because you don't validate
your vibes? Validate my vibes, okay?
An advantage.
But then he went on
he said,
to
quote,
say,
I have 2 little girls. I don't want them getting run over on a playing field by a male or formerly male athlete.
But he went on to say, as a Democrat, I'm supposed to be afraid to say that. No, you don't have to be afraid to say that. Stop that nonsense.
Stop that nonsense.
Pretend like I'm not about to criticize you for it. Pretend like you can just say what you want, and I'm not going to criticize you even though I agree with you.
How you feel, be honest, be intellectually honest.
Except as Caitlin points out, he took a lot of stuff for it.
Because he didn't say it in the context of trying to say, look, this is how I feel on the issue. He was trying to give an explanation about why we may have lost the election, and it was far more complicated, I think, than he was making it out to be in that comment. I know you disagree with me on that.
No. Listen, I think the Democratic Party needs to get back to fundamentals.
Yep.
In my view, I mean, I've said this many times, Democratic Party has to stop approaching working people like missionaries and anthropologists with the message, we're here to help you become more like us.
Yes.
But here's the thing that so many in our party miss when they say that working people, 45% of working people are black and brown. We're not going to get back white, non-college educated men thinking that we're going with one message instead of
the biggest loss Democrats faced were among Hispanics.
That's right. You know what? Because we haven't talked to them in the last 3 years.
We
haven't talked to Hispanics for
and luckily we have 2 to 4 years.
He's trying to talk to him. Gavin Newsom is trying to talk to him. All right? Gavin Newsom is a savvy politician, like I was trying to say earlier. A good politician will validate your vibes, make you feel good, talk about issues that are emotionally salient to you, right? And then when you give them power, they do things that benefit people who donate to them, all right? That makes you an effective politician, all right? And before you know it, you're living in a slum, all right? That is the process. Gavin Newsom is well-versed. He knows exactly what he's doing. He's very good at it. If the Democrats had any sense and they liked winning, they would support him, right? Because he knows what he's doing, all right? He's got his finger up in the air. He's shining his nice teeth. He's waving his nice haircut. And he is speaking directly to the kinds of people who are going to win him a general election, okay? And sadly, that's all Democrats are going to have to do if they want to win. All right, they're just going to have to appear as the back to normal. You don't even have to trust them, right, to vote for them. You just have to feel like, you just have to have those safe feelings, right?
If you made it this far in the video, then may your enemies flee before you. May you find the bell icon that gives you notifications. I get something. Mother God.
Hi.